Let's see if we're going to be live soon. Let's see how we're doing here. Yeah, all right, we're live. Welcome, Metropolis. I am bringing you here Justin Hall, our venture capital expert, you guys, expert. And he has agreed to come into the hot seat, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly how this conversation went. I reached out to Justin. We were going back and forth about something that was completely not applicable here. And I said, hey, why don't you come on the show? And he's like, oh, yeah, I would like to come on the show. And I said, you know, we're going to give you a bunch of shit, right? The first thing out of everybody's mouth is going to be, you're destroying our industry, Justin. You're destroying it. And he's like, I can handle that. I'm good. I'm cool. And I've been waiting for him. I'm going to be honest, Justin. I've been waiting for you to bail out this entire time. I'm like, he's going to bail. It's going to come, especially when I posted our questions that we have for you, which came from the audience. So, all right, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, tell us about your role, and if you don't mind, tell us what the hell a venture capital firm even is for those who are
Yeah. And you should, listen, I'm proud of myself for making this time. I'm staring at a beautiful lake called Mille Lacs that's just got fish waiting to be captured by me. And
Nice.
I'm choosing Metropolis over the water, but I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have gotten to know your brand in the last probably couple of weeks. I think the president of USA Truck said something similar. I was almost embarrassed that I hadn't heard of Metropolis or Mad Gaines or this Mo Freight, Mo Problems. And so I've usually hit to what's going on, but you should be proud of yourself. I mean, you've got a hell of a movement going on right here, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. We're growing fast, and it's mostly because we love being educated.
Well, I'll speak to the mission of Metropolis. I think this unification of shippers, brokers, carriers, it's the lines are already blurred. It's funny, like I've been in this industry since 2005. Like, it's funny how protective everyone is of their sandbox. It's really not like that in other industries. I think, this motion or movement towards collaboration is long overdue. I certainly think platforms, certainly like, Freight Waves, Mad Gains, I think you guys are doing the right things and forcing these, what were once considered uncomfortable conversations to happen and to be very fluid and very transparent. So I'll do my best to figure out how this whole investment VC component fits in that broader ecosystem. But I'm hoping by the end of the call, you guys think it belongs. So we'll have to poll the audience.
I'm sure we will.
I don't know how far back you want me to start. I'm going to try to be extremely brief with my background because I think it's a pretty unique background. I'm not a investment guy by trade. I came up in a family business, actually. I ran a 3PL for about 10 years. My dad, a quick story, my dad ran all inbound logistics for 3M. Prior to that, he had been in logistics for an aviation company and in the war. And so it was in his blood, but we thought it was boring. So my siblings and I were like, we don't even know what you do, Dad. And we want nothing to do with supply chain or logistics. And long story short, I somehow ended up in the family business. And so LPS, over about a 10-year journey, evolved from really a company that had built software to try to, in essence, streamline and simplify warehouse and inventory optimization, and then rating and routing and freight payment. And I'm talking like back to when like software was on floppies, Cassandra. Like, we were literally, like, I remember as a kid, like stuffing envelopes and like mailing out tariffs that needed to be updated in people's PCs. It's like crazy.
And then we had the hard disks.
Oh, literally, yeah. And over time, as I got involved with the business, what we tried to evolve into was a company that was going to be nothing other than full enterprise managed transportation. So we were not your classic Chicago brokerage. Like, every account that we pursued, we wanted everything. We wanted to manage the parcel, the LTL, all modes of truckload, the air and ground expedite, heavy haul. And so we would only land a couple of deals a year, but the goal was, in essence, that when someone came to do business with us, they were never going to leave. And we were locking the hooks in systematically. We had the freight payment and the data, and then we had the people that were executing the actual trans management. So today they call it managed trans, but back then we actually adopted more of a mindset of a 4PL, meaning you can come onto our contracts, we can adopt your contracts. I really don't care but 100% of it's going to be managed by my team, and we're all in. And so we had a blast, really from 2010 to probably the end of 2016. We doubled every year. So we grew to about $250 million of revenue under management. We had a global heavy haul freight forwardership. We had a heavy asset rail car company. Then we had our core 3PL. And luckily, we were able to exit all those to Global Trans, your neighbor right there in Scottsdale.
Ah, good old Leto.
Exactly. So we exited to Global Trans. Actually, Bob Farrell was the chairman at the time. And so a number of my employees and friends are still with that great company. In 2016, at that same time of exiting, I was sort of running a parallel path of trying to join the YRC companies, which obviously today was a big day for YRC, and we can talk on that. James Welch, the CEO, was a good friend of mine, a mentor that I was luckily able to kind of meet early in my career, and I just stayed in touch with him. And long story short, the board challenged him to bring on a disruptor. I came in, became the chief customer officer of YRC Worldwide from 2016 to really last June. So on my 3-year anniversary, I parted ways. And then that's why you find me here today working for ABC. And so we'll get into ABC and who they are and what my role is. But technically, I'm called an executive in residence, which is really just an operating advisor. So we have a portfolio of about 20 logistics tech companies that we've made bets on. And what I try to do once I've supported the actual vetting process of who should we bet on, I then try to immerse myself and make myself available with their leadership teams, talking about go-to-market, product market fit, talent management, and then certainly leverage my Rolodex to say, if from a biz dev standpoint, I can help you, I want to come in shoulder to shoulder with you as we try to land business. So I've been there about 8 months, and it's just been an absolute blast. And I've certainly learned a lot about venture capital. So I've lived on the 3PL side, the asset side, and now here I am on the VC side. So I'll pause real quick.
Oh, so we are very lucky to have you because you have a good background. You're not somebody who's just been in the investment world for a long time, comes in and doesn't know crap about transportation, which is usually who we all start bitching about. So when you started working in the VC world, what was the first thing that you were like, oh my God, this is nuts? Like the biggest realization you had?
Listen, I mean, I'm from Minneapolis, and obviously Chicago and Atlanta, there's certain cities that are considered like the heartbeat of freight and transportation. I love Chattanooga. They kind of proclaim themselves to be part of Freight Alley. If you really think about like that whole Atlanta, Memphis, Chattanooga triangle. And I've got a lot of love for people getting it done in Chattanooga. But I will tell you, being in the Midwest,
you guys, his company is an investor in FreightWaves, just so you guys know. So I just want to make sure people don't find out afterward, and then they're pissed.
And I'm going to shamelessly plug a lot of the companies that
it's
we've
okay.
invested
People
into.
get on here and they start plugging in. That's all right.
Yeah. I will tell you that the thing that literally floored me, when you live in the Midwest, in a lot of areas that aren't necessarily left or right coast, like you are so sheltered, like you think you're in the know, and then you find out very quickly you're not. So I think what was really humbling for me was when I got into Silicon Valley, was to just learn and observe how smart these people are, and literally how much they obsess about continuous learning. Like these people by hobby, and they have fun hobbies, don't get me wrong, but literally by hobby, they study and they study and they say, it's like, they don't just leave MIT or Stanford or one of these glitzy colleges and then just stop learning. Like they obsess about studying and networking and literally conversating about what's going on in the world and what's going to be, relevant and disruptive technologies.
So what are they studying
now and into the future?
Like for our industry? What are they studying?
Good question. So first and foremost, like a lot of us, our best information comes from our network. And so you're only as powerful as the people that you associate yourself with. Right? I mean, like you get a lot of people like taking time away from their job today to be a part of the Metropolis sort of movement of information, right? You have this huge knowledge sharing network that you've created. And I look at like the sheer variety of people that you've had on the show. And while I think you, like, I credit you, like, as you've got like this element of levity and you're letting me sit here with like a Guinness in the middle of, northern Minnesota, like join you on this podcast. So like, I appreciate the informality, but I also appreciate that, like, I listen to probably 70 of your podcasts and like, you're diving like into the weeds and trying to educate people on things that are probably well outside of the traditional wheelhouse. So,
and the main reason is because there seems to be a huge gap in our industry with education, real education. Mm-hmm. So, and we were just talking about this, some of my friends and I were just talking about how you can't even learn about this stuff in, there would be supply chain management programs in different schools. And some of my friends have taken those courses or have gone through that training. They're like, I didn't learn shit about the transportation side. So I'm just curious what these folks are. What are they using to learn the industry? Just more out of curiosity, just in case we're missing an excellent resource out there.
Yeah, I would tell you that information is more accessible, obviously, than maybe we give it credit for. I mean, this is 2020. I mean, information is so ubiquitous and omnipresent. Like, if you really want to search, you can go online and get access to about any historical or current day information that you could want. From podcasts like this to, certainly, if I was going to plug FreightWaves, if you literally like deep dive their passport sort of ecosystem of knowledge and white papers and stories, like there's just an incredible amount of information about global logistics, about four walls in the ceiling contract logistics, about surface transportation. But listen, in the world of VC, no different than like in the world of transportation, like there is like players, like, and there's pretenders, right? There's alphas and there's betas. So let's not get it twisted. Like in VC, not everybody's making money.
Right.
80 to 90% of venture capital firms are breaking even or losing money. Like, as an asset class, it's a risky asset class, right? I mean, it's not like going into a small cap portfolio. Like, you are basically saying that, like, I'm trusting as an LP or an investor that I found myself one of the alphas, or you could be literally throwing your money away or taking a 10-year break without much for gain. And so why do I say that? Because your original question was like, well, what are they studying? Like, how are they figuring out transportation? Like, these people are figuring out.
The other
Yeah,
reason I'm asking is because we see it. We see
yeah.
these people who just graduated from Stanford, MIT, Cornell, Andrew Teal, and they come in and have this great tech, and they're starting this company, and they're founded by some of our VCs in our industry, and
Yeah.
literally everybody's looking at them like, the fuck do they know about transportation?
That's right. And that's fair. Listen, I was one of them, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you
I
were. I'm
will
sure you
warn
came
you.
in like, what in
No,
the
I was
world?
like, listen, like, I mean, like, I literally went from running a 3PL to a set of 100-year-old, trucking companies. So I've lived on both sides of the game.
Right.
I certainly pride myself as like one of these like hardcore old school freight guys, but like, I'm here
And
to
you have the
tell you,
right to.
like, yeah, like I've earned it, like literally, like I've got the war scars to prove it. But like, I'm here to tell you, like, if you want to sleep on these young kids, like, you're sorely mistaken. These people have the mental capacity to figure out how to address disruption in bio IT and healthcare and pharma and fintech and insurtech and govtech. You don't think they're not going to figure out logistics tech? Are you kidding me? Like, trust me, like, I was one of these guys that was so proud. I'm like, unless you've been out there beating the streets and worked the dock and done, like, listen, like, I've stacked trailers for RPS FedEx. I've done all that stuff. I did the walk the mile uphill and then back uphill on the way home from school. Like, I get it. I meet these young 20 somethings, the people I used to talk shit about. And like, I'm here to tell you, like, they're networking with all of the smartest people that have run roughshod on our industry, like badasses from UPS, FedEx, ex CFOs of CH Robinson, people that have run great companies. Like, now AVC is unique because when I talk to you about our portfolio and the backgrounds of all our founders, these aren't people that were like green to transportation. Like, most of them came from the game and they're just choosing to do it again. Like, they're just rinsing and repeating. So back to like your original question, like, well, what are they studying? How are they figuring this stuff out? Like, they're so audacious that both the investors and the people borrowing the money are so audacious. They'll call anybody. Like, Cassandra, like, they'll get on a plane and they will like beg, borrow, and steal to get an hour with Craig Fuller or an hour with you or an hour with the president of Old Dominion. Like, they're going to figure out how to get in front of these people, and they're going to ask like very good discovery questions. They're going to take like methodical notes, and they just do this thing constantly. And like, all of a sudden in 6 to 12 months, they are just as hip to what's going on in our world as we are, a guy like me that lived it for 15 years. And trust me, like, hey, by the way, 8 months ago, I was in that same camp of like, these whippersnappers don't know shit. They're borrowing this money. They're going to burn it all. This is all a joke. If you aren't a part of like the old school posse, you're nobody. Dead wrong. Like, I was like, I'm so humbled. Like, I was so dead wrong. So
I want to pause there for a minute because I'm trying to wrap my head around this. And one thing I keeps running through my head is that if this education if we can bring in these really intelligent people, which are lots of them in this world, and there's lots of them in our industry, and if this education and this networking is so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out why there are so many companies that aren't investing in their employees in the same manner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know some people, I can feel it. I can feel the vibe that some people are like, oh, fuck this shit. These guys can't be that smart. It takes me years to learn this stuff. You got to sit at the desk and you got to learn this stuff from
Mm-hmm.
top to bottom. And oh, by the way, why I was a good lawyer is because I sat at that desk and I did learn this stuff top to bottom. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I hear you and I'm thinking in my mind, why don't we have companies that are investing in their employees in a very similar way, especially their leaders? And why is that education gap so big when we have
Mm-hmm.
VCs coming in, seeing the gap and filling it? Because really, the way they're filling it, it sounds like, is they're sitting them in front of top leaders, and these guys are getting the
Yeah.
education, and gals are getting
So
the education.
like
Does that
I
make
love the
sense,
way you're
Justin?
shaped. You're shaping the question perfectly. Like, so I remember I was being a little bit shitty earlier, and I'm like, you're either an alpha or you're a beta. Like, that actually means something. If you're an alpha VC, your network is so deep.
Mm.
I don't care if you're trying to get patents approved. If there's literally a senator you need to talk to, if there's a head of research of a hospital you're trying to reach, they have those connections. They literally know heads of state. If you're trying to reach somebody in the
Mm.
UAE because you think you're going to do something, like their connections are so ridiculous. It's hard to even explain. Now, can I just like put something out there for your audience? Because I think there's still like a huge gap in understanding of what is PE and what is VC.
Yeah,
Can I just address that real quick?
absolutely.
Um, and I'm not saying this to like I don't know, like maybe be too obvious or to trivialize the way people are thinking or how learned they are in the world of investments. Like, here's the thing: if you're in PE, you are looking for mature businesses
Mm-hmm.
that have already built the foundation. You are looking for platform companies that you're willing to write a big check into, right? Like maybe at a minimum 50 million, more likely $100 million plus. And your goal in our world, that might be a Ridgemont, a Greenbrier, a Warburg Pincus, it might be a Capstone, it's going to be a Jordan Capital, people like that. They're coming in with the full intention of buying a great company and building the shit out of it. They're going to stack and layer companies upon companies on top of this mothership sort of control tower, if that makes sense, right? So there's probably within that foundation some great leadership and some great tech. And so I'm spending that money knowing that $100 million today is going to turn into $1 billion or $2 billion for me in the next probably 3 to 5 years. So why did I say 3 to 5 years? If I get into PE and I make investments, I'm looking for a 3 to 5 year turn. If I get into venture, I'm writing a smaller check and I'm waiting 7 to 10 years, sometimes 12 years, hopefully for an explosion. You feel me? So
Yeah.
if I'm in PE, I'm not trying to lose money, by the way. So if I make 5 bets, I want 5 to work out. Like literally, like, and I'm probably looking to 2 to 5x my return, and I don't want to miss, and I want it to happen like that. But I'm writing a bigger check and a little bit more of a predictable bet, if you will, than venture saying, I'm looking for seed, like ABC. This is our philosophy. We have, by the way, we have 3 billion under management right now. We're in our 5th fund. Every fund we raise about $650 million. And we're cutting checks between probably more like 3 million and 15 million. And we want to find you early. Cassie, if you're going to start a company in 3 months, I want to be talking to you now. Like
I
pre-revenue,
always thought
hell,
that you
sometimes
would wait to
pre-idea.
see what was built, see if it's working, and then decide if you're going to. So you're telling me you'll go in even earlier and invest in simply an idea, actually, because it's not a proven
Oh
concept
yeah.
yet.
It can literally be vaporware on a deck.
Hmm.
Private equity would never do that. Now in venture capital, it doesn't mean you're like flippantly just chucking your LP's money around. What you're looking for is you're looking for smart enterprises. You're looking for really strong technical team and or a technical founder. And you're looking for a track record of success. So you're betting on the jockey. You're saying, listen, like this individual show me a track record of building their shareholders' value. And so even though they don't necessarily have an extremely mature and robust software product yet, I believe they can build it. I believe they can assemble a team. I believe that they can control their cost of customer acquisition. And I think they're going to hit what is a very scalable, sort of network effectable market. And if I believe those things, then I'm going to make the bet. But keep in mind, if I make 10 bets in VC and counter this to what I just said about PE, I'm really hoping that one, maybe two carry the fund, meaning they're going to give me 10 to 100x return. I want another three or four to at least give me a small cap type return. I mean, average 10 to 12% a year over 10 years, call it. So maybe I'm like 2 or 3xing. And I know that 3 or 4 are going belly up. I'm sorry. And I like think about that. Like I consciously know that 30 to 40% of my 10 bets I've made are probably going to shit the bed. And I don't care. Most especially because if I get that one, if I bag that hog, that's going to carry the fund. So I'm sorry, like to just like
No,
run
it's okay.
off
And I
into that.
think this is what people in our industry get so annoyed with the venture
Mm-hmm.
capital and flooding the market with ideas, let's call them
Yeah.
ideas, is because, well, first of all, a lot of these ideas don't pan out, but the rest of us in the industry have to deal with the disruption, and then we
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with the reaction when an entity fails and doesn't work out. And then the flip side to that is as well, no, let's add this on, right? We have to deal with the disruption in the industry. We feel like
Yeah.
constantly as industry people, and you're going to completely know what I mean, is that we constantly have disruptors with shit ass ideas that are not really new, but they've got VC funding behind them that are literally buying market share. And then we all have to adjust. We're losing shippers because we know your VCs are well funded, so you're calling the shippers
Mm-hmm.
executives. So there's this whole shit storm that goes on. We're trying to all see the benefits of
Yeah.
having VCs. Since you're in our industry and you get it, what is the benefit?
Can I call out your community on this real quick?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'll just wait for the comments to come in and say like go to hell. But like, guess what? When you guys think of VC backed disruptors in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of your community is so hyper focused on Uber Freight, Convoy, like Cargomatic, LoadSmart, like right, Transfix. Like I get it. Like this notion of a digital brokerage where there's this magical, mythical matchmaking going on that's going to like completely explode this third party logistics in the intermediary world. I get how like divisive that topic is. All I'm asking you to like think about is of a $500 billion that has entered into the logistics tech market by venture capitalists. Do you know how small that $500 billion is segmented on this sort of like digital marketplace? Like it's like a microfraction of that $500 billion. We've got companies that are addressing things like we've got a company that is building electric autonomous yard vehicles that are going to literally manage ports and distribution center yards so that they're safe, they're humanless, and they're eco-friendly. What the hell does that have to do with Uber Freight? We've got a company in portfolio called Joby Aviation. Toyota just gave them $450 million. They're going to be the Uber of the air. They're literally going to be people movers that look like drones that are big enough for humans to get inside it. We've got investment into the Boring Company, which is one of Elon Musk's company that's literally building the underground tunnels that are going to create these hyperloops for cargo and people movement below places like Las Vegas or Los Angeles. So I guess my point is like, when you think about like one of our holdings, Platform Science, they're building a microservices platform to live inside the cab so that just the same way as I can download apps on my phone, a driver can plug in and unplug any value add app that they want inside of the cab without it being a complete shit show for their corporate office to figure out how do we allow them to do dot capture? How do we allow them to digitize something I know near and dear to your heart, the EBOL, which by the way, we've got another company called Vector that's digitizing paperwork, right? What does digitizing paperwork have to do with Uber Freight or Convoy, right? And so I guess my point is like, I think when people think about VC and who are these arrogant assholes that don't know transportation trying to come in and disrupt, I think you need to think bigger around safety, hardware, data, process automation, like all these other areas that have nothing to do with a digital freight brokerage. All right, there's my rant.
No, it's good rant. So I think we should back up a little bit too. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you could tell us, actually, wait, let me pause and make sure that I'm addressing. This time is going by fast. So, okay, so I love this question. Can you share information on the percent of equity required by a general VC or yours, or maybe just
Mm-hmm.
share a little bit about the process, which is a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a super great question. At the center of the venture ecosystem is the entrepreneur. And so the thing, and I don't say this to be too apple pie, like the beauty of the venture ecosystem is that there's a fundamental belief in venture that entrepreneurs in this private sector are going to carry the world forward. Like pick your vertical, right? It could be health related, it could be science related, it could be tech. And the belief is that if we take all of their equity, there's nothing left for them to build world-class teams. So if I'm in venture, I'm probably not trying to take more than 15 to 25% total. So I'm going to give you a $15 million check. I'm probably expecting 15% maybe on a pre-money $100 million valuation. And then my expectation is that you're going to build out a world-class team, and a lot of that accessible equity is there to allow your team to enjoy the ride. Does that make sense? Now, naturally, you need some of that there too, because there's going to be dilution over time as you do later stage rounds to raise more money. But counter that to PE, where I'm probably coming in and saying, well, no matter what, hell or high water, I'm getting 51% and control, board control. But more likely, I want 100% board control, and I'm going to put a CEO in to run your company. You see how like black and white those two things are? Like venture is more like, no, like I shouldn't have to tell you how to run your business. Like I'm betting on you, sir or madam, and you better put a world-class team together and go make it rain in this, particular market. So is that, hopefully that helped your
No,
your
it does.
caller's
That's
question.
very enlightening. And there's one other question, and this is from Chandler. So I'll tell you that Chandler is one of our lead followers, that we all love him. And one thing he always says, because he runs a successful business, is he holds up these pair of shoes that have been run down. And he always talks about how, he had to work so hard in the beginning. So Chandler, I'll get to your question in just a minute, but you reminded me of a question that I had for Justin, which is, and I got to make sure I don't piss off a ton of people with this question, but do you think sometimes, especially since you're in our industry and you've been built from ground up, do you think sometimes with venture capital, it's a way for young entrepreneurs to kind of escape the hard work and building something organically? Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to build something right now. I don't want anybody to come in and buy it. And I want to keep it scrappy because I want that organic growth, because that's all about what my company is about, is authenticity and organic. Do you feel like sometimes it's lost in the VC world? Do you find yourself rolling your eyes sometimes because, we're buying ping pongs instead of investing in a product, ping pong tables instead of investing in a product? Or is that just a myth and I'm just being a grumpy old lawyer? Cynical.
I think it's, so I'm going to answer the question and not try to be overly, diplomatic about it, but I think it's a very fair question. And I get to answer this question with authenticity because keep in mind where I came from. I lived in a family business where we were self-made and 100% organic from 0 to 250 million. Not through one acquisition did we get to the point where we got, we wanted a deal at a time, methodically. Then I went to YRC where literally we had 8 guns pointed at our head at all times, just trying to survive and then thrive through bootstrapping. So it wasn't like I had an abundance of capital at YRC. We had an aging fleet. Any disposable dollar we had was reinvested back into the fleet. So my point is my whole career up until venture, I know what hard knock life is for bootstrapping and being scrappy and waiting your turn. Fair?
Right.
Having said that, just because I have maybe an early on abundance of capital to start to sprint and assemble a team way faster, which by the way comes at the expense of free cash flow or profitability, right? So I'm expensing net income or EBITDA because I'm going to accelerate the shit out of my team and build products so fast. That doesn't make life any easier for me. I would challenge anyone on this Metropolis webinar to join me on a quarterly business review for any one of these founders that's VC backed, and to hear the way that they are throttled by their investors with tough questions around how are you going to get me here? Do you see where I'm going? Even though they got
it's a fair
they're getting
point
a head
too.
start, but
would they have had a better product and a better run company if they just slowed the fuck down and built it scrappy style, Cassandra style? Or and this is me actually kind of not being very fluent in this area, and that's why I ask as well.
So I used to think the same thing where if you ramrod your product down the throat of customers and you try to
Yes.
run too fast that you're just going to deliver crap that's just rife with like
Yeah. Okay.
issues and you're
Can
going
I
to
tell you
just,
something, Justin? Because when
yeah,
you go to Freight Waves, your Freight Waves, I watched all of the demos, and I thought these are good ideas. These are good ideas. But then when I engaged or I talked to people who either have engaged or they're planning on engaging in those companies, those startup tech companies, they would tell me the product's not finished. It's a piece of shit. They need to slow down. They don't understand this. They don't understand that. And it just felt like we were
yeah,
just throwing money all over the place. And
yeah.
I was like, man, if they just slowed down, this actually probably would have been a good idea. And by the way, a lot of those companies are gone. The ones that presented at Freightwaves,
Right.
maybe that was a year ago now in Atlanta.
So one of the things I would challenge anyone assessing venture-backed startups to think about is, again, who's backing them.
Mm-hmm.
No different than if I was PE backed. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
shitty PE firms and there's good ones. So, and then obviously I work for ABC, so people are rolling their eyes and probably saying, well, of course he's partial to ABC, but like I'm here to tell you, like between Andreessen Horowitz or a Kleiner Perkins or Madrona, like some of these like badass venture capital firms out there that like traditionally don't lose. They're giving you 2 to 5x returns if you're an investor, and they're finding the most world-class companies out there. There's a reason. Back to my network conversation. Okay, we see 4,000 deals a year inbound, and these are referrals from like really brilliant people saying, "Hey, you got to look at this company. You got to look at this company." 4,000 deals a year, and ABC bets on 1% of them. Like, you don't think we're not doing our due diligence and vetting who's shit and who's worth making a bet on? So
Yeah.
we've made 40 bets after looking at 4,000 deals. Chances are pretty good the quality of the 4,000 deals we looked at and the quality of the 40 bets we made are better than literally 95% of the other VCs in the market. So I'm not saying there's not reckless VCs out there investing into shitty companies with shitty
Right.
owners and shitty product. Doesn't mean those are bad people. Those were entrepreneurs with a dream. They just didn't have the tools or the people to get it done. If you're with a great firm and you are vetting world-class founders that have had a track record of success, I guarantee those weren't the people you were talking to at Freightways, right?
Mm.
So I kind of like,
So what
it
I'm
was a
hearing
roundabout
is,
answer to your
I'm actually
question,
hearing
but
your firm is different. That's what I'm
yeah,
hearing. But you do, and so you want all of us to not be so black and white and to look behind the
right,
curtain and
yeah,
analyze, okay, who is truly backing these companies?
yeah.
Don't be so quick to throw Justin and his company into the bus. They do actually. I pay attention to Justin's company and his and their investments, and there's some good ones out there. Um, and so you're telling us to not be so quick at throwing
Yeah,
VC
you
under the
can.
bus. Instead, you want me to
And,
get a PE guy on here, and we'll fucking throw her under the bus. Is what I'm hearing.
no, no, no. And listen, there's great PE firms, but I wouldn't have sold my company had it not been for PE. So I trust me.
I
I
know
know
you're not.
how
You're
I
good
get
at
fed.
this, but
Um,
I
so
think
so
that's
here's
what
the
I'm
check.
hearing. And
Yep. Here's a check. Okay, I got $5 million. And Cassandra, you got $5 million. So we're both holding our checks. And sitting off here to my left is an entrepreneur with a world class idea. Are our two $5 million checks created equal today? Let's just say Matt Gaines says 5 mil, I got 5 mil. And this
not
entrepreneur,
equal.
they may say, well, like I really like Cassandra, I'm taking her 5 mil. But
Hmm.
realistically, they might look at ABC and say, well,
He's
what
got a
else
lot
do I
more to
get with that
offer.
$5 million?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
And
too.
I'm
I'd be
literally
like, I
gonna,
want the connections, especially if I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I want the education and I want the support too.
so
Um,
we've chosen to do in a lot of deals. So we lead 70% of the deals that we do. But just because we led the deal doesn't mean we're the only investor. I don't know if many people in Metropolis know this. Maersk has a venture arm. Prologis, the largest commercial real estate owner in the world, has a venture arm. Schneider has a venture arm. Daimler, I'm talking Daimler out of Germany, they have a venture arm. We're going to these companies and saying, we're going to let you invest alongside of us. Matter of fact, we need you to invest alongside of us. But guess what? I need you to do this, this, and this for the company to help them succeed. Do you see where I'm going with that?
yeah.
We built a company called Baton. Baton is doing relays, and that's just trailer swaps for last mile so that long haul drivers don't have to go in and dick around in cities and fight with traffic and then have 3 hours of demurrage. Like, we just want long haul drivers doing long haul.
And for all of you who are listening, go to Baton. I think it's Baton Trucking, but go to their website
Yeah.
so you can visually see what he's talking about. It actually
Badass.
is pretty fucking cool.
It's one of my most exciting bets that we made. It's actually a build company. And by the way, this was two young
It's
whippersnappers.
a
One
what
was
company?
MIT, one was Stanford. We call it build companies. So about 20% of the ABC portfolio, we spend building companies. So we find great entrepreneurs, we get a couple co-investors, and we help them build the business plan and go execute, which is really cool. There's not a lot of venture firms that do that.
Yeah.
But why am I bringing those folks up? What the hell? Why am I bringing them up? I think I had a point, but I think the point was really more
I'm
like,
sorry, I distracted you because I was excited when I heard Baton. Because I think you guys do have some good folks, and I hope that they do
oh,
well.
I know I brought it up. Unfair advantage, right? So if we're going to make a bet or we're going to build a company, as investors, we should be able to give them an unfair advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the unfair advantages we gave them was with Prologis as an investor in every single Prologis facility in every first and secondary market city where we may want to set up, right, these Baton relay centers. We have a secure yard. Think about that. Like, think of every place where there's a Prologis facility.
Yeah,
That's now an
Prologis
empty
is
parking
huge.
lot that we can use. That's more than a check, right? So Prologis did more than offer up money. They said, well, we'll give you money and real estate. Like, that's an awesome way to differentiate yourself as an investor. So I'm glad I figured out why the hell I
Yeah.
brought him.
So tell us, so who's working, let's use Baton as an example. So who's working at Baton? Who's your team right now? Are you helping them grow? Is that?
Yeah, I'm absolutely engaged with that team. They have a couple of folks that they've recently hired that have industry experience. So keep in mind, just because you're a founder with no experience doesn't mean you can't steal
Right.
talent from the industry that already has had that hard-earned decade or
Build
two
your
decades of
bench.
experience. Yep. They've built an incredible bench from an investor standpoint. So they've got people, and I'm not going to go down the entire list, but the founder of Flexport's an investor. There's Craig Fuller's involved on their board. They've got incredible people involved with the board. And so one of their board members was an ex-financial analyst that covered our entire logistics ecosystem at Stifel, right? So think of the brilliance that they're assembling on that board to teach these 20 somethings everything that they can't figure out. They can't wait 20 years to figure out everything their board knows.
Right.
So we're just giving them that information freely.
Can I ask you a stupid question,
Um,
Justin? Why don't
mhm.
you guys go in to companies that already exist and are doing a good job and invest in them? Why do you prefer to do something ground up like Baton or many
Mhm.
other companies?
Awesome question. Um, the mindset of our firm, 8VC, is that the earlier stage, the better. Meaning, if we can catch them at seed, or we have a joke called mango seed, or basically into their A round, that we're getting in early enough where we can still buy at value. If we wait too long and they're too established,
Translation, he's getting them cheaper.
it's cheaper. Period. That's the economics of it, right? But by the way, why do I have to do that? Keep in mind, as much as we all love geeking out about who we're going to invest in and how we're going to nurture
Right.
the portfolio, we have this whole investor community on the other side that we've got to appease, right? So if I'm going to the Canadian pension fund, or if I'm going to a rich family office in Dubai, I'm making a promise to them that we're going to find incredible wins, meaning 10 to 100x turns. Remember that? I can't get a 10 or 100x turn if I wait until somebody's 7 years into their life cycle. I need them literally 7 weeks or 7 months into the life cycle.
Do you remember James Reed said something that stuck with a lot of us, and it was, oh man, I wish I could remember, but it basically was something about how reworking different procedures is like the most insulting inefficiency. So
Mm-hmm.
what is the balance between I'm going to invest in an already existing company that has already went through all the pain points and made all their mistakes and have something demonstrated successful product versus I'm going to invest in something brand new where we've got a lot of labor inefficiencies and
Mm-hmm.
experience inefficiencies. Does that
Um,
even make sense to you?
if any, let me chuck this out there. If anybody hasn't listened to the USA Truck interview, what was that, 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago?
Yep. He's
Get
badass.
your ass on it.
Mm-hmm.
I loved everything he said because I've lived on the asset side and I've lived on the non-asset side, and I think he threaded that needle so perfectly. I hope he got an abundance of kudos in his LinkedIn or something, because I just think, one, he was raw and authentic, and two, I just think that the wisdom he offered was for everybody. I don't care if you were a shipper. By the way, if you're a shipper, you're sending in bottles of wine probably, right? I think you did a really effective job of helping brokers and
Yeah,
carriers
for
understand
sure.
what life is like in the seat of a shipper. But I think you also heard him say, what is he as a trucking company, a legacy company? What does he have to gain being an early adopter? Remember we said that?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, why am I going to be the first one to go out and try to build something new, or necessarily be like, spend a bunch of money to like try to disrupt myself and how I conduct my business? Because he kept saying, I'm in a commoditized world. Like, if I see JB Hunt do something awesome, I'll just copycat them 6 months later. Remember, I don't know if you remember that conversation.
Yes.
What I would argue is that there's so many companies out there, and I'm not saying you've got to have a venture arm like Daimler or like Maersk, but if you're a legacy company on the shipper side, the broker side, or the carrier side, and you don't have a skunk works team, or you don't have a team that's just literally out there scouring who's building cool shit and how's it going to impact my company, that is like an abject failure by you as a business leader. And I call it something called dual transformation. Most people are trying to build resilience for today. I've got this legacy business and I've got to make sure it's defensible.
Yes.
And I'm carrying and feeding for my customer base. And like, by the way, you have to do that. But while you're doing that, literally in parallel, you have to have a team of people that are playing war games, that are doing game. Sorry, as I lose my headset. That are literally sitting there and saying, I'm actually going to take those phone calls from these startups, these evil venture-backed startups, and I'm going to find out, like, do they actually have something? Because if to the extent they do, I'm in a pennies business, especially if I'm on the shipper side, I'm in the negative side, right? My cost of transportation, logistics, or fulfillment, or reverse logistics relative to my COGS, it's a loss leader, right? No wonder those people are treated like, the redheaded stepchild. If I'm a carrier and I'm literally bringing between 2 and 8 cents to the bottom line and fighting like a dog just to do that, why the hell would I ignore somebody that's coming in and tell me that they can give me tools that are going to get me from maybe 2 cents to 4 cents, or 4 cents to 8 cents, right?
Makes sense.
And I'll tell you why that doesn't happen. It's laziness and it's lack of talent. These companies have old school recruiting methods. They're not going into the colleges and finding these brilliant young whippersnappers and bringing them in and saying, challenge me on everything I'm doing. Why? Because these are bureaucracies and they've got layers. And if you're an intern or a 25-year-old, you don't have a voice. Well, guess what? Those are the companies that get absolutely slaughtered. So
makes sense.
that's
One of our favorite shippers has a question for you. And
cool.
he
I
says,
love it.
what is the
Go for it.
definition of success in transportation? Is it all about the ROI or the actual impact, change, innovation in the industry? Is that part irrelevant? Like, what's important to you with success?
Oh, yeah, good question. In venture, we're looking at it in a couple of different ways. In venture, you have bio IT and life sciences where the work is so critical. But let's just take healthcare. 18% of our GDP is just being flushed down the toilet for healthcare. Like, do you realize how big of an issue and how crippling that is relative to our total deficit as a country? So solving the inefficiencies that exist in healthcare, or solving problems that exist in bio IT to save lives or extend lives, right? And improve quality of living. Like, to me, like, now you're chasing two things. Yes, I want ROI, but also I want to change the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to compare what goes on in life sciences to logistics.
Right.
Now, I tend to have an extreme soft spot for the driver community. I'm fully aware of how hard it is to, hire and maintain drivers. And I understand the gaps that exist with just how big the shortage is and going to continue to be into the future. So anything that has to do with safety of a driver or safety of the public, that can be solved through technology and naturally making the lives of the driver better. Yeah, I love that. 'Cause to me, there's a good soft spot, right? There's a human element there. And there's also an ROI, like, hey, I want to make the investment and make money. But by the way, there's a whole host of other areas that we want to invest in smart enterprise that actually maybe could be looked at a little bit more critically and saying, the automation you're driving is actually putting jobs at risk. And this tends to be a really meaty and divisive topic, right? Because now you're saying, well, you bloodsuckers, you're not only looking for a huge ROI in your investment, you're invested in companies that are taking away middle-class American jobs. To which I say, okay, yes, that argument can be made, but it's a much more robust conversation. What really needs to happen is we've got to figure out how to elevate the quality of the work people are doing. Do you know how many people in our industry and transportation are still doing this? Linear, process-based bullshit in SAP
Using
or
Excel
Oracle or a
spreadsheets.
TMS. Oh, and so we say, well, okay, well, people want to like lob a missile at a company that's trying to drive process automation. And I'd say, well, yeah, but like, do you really think your people want to continue to do that bullshit? So if I'm Project 44 or I'm Four Kites or these others that are like driving process automation for visibility or dispatch or billing, I say kudos, because the people that are doing that really need to be trained to figure out how to do network optimization, freight optimization, drive real savings that's sustainable, do carrier and customer engagement, do all the things that like we all like to promise we're going to do and then don't do because we're stuck doing the mundane bullshit. So
Makes sense. I know Project 44. It's been around for a long time. They're a good company, also one of your companies, I think, that you've invested in. What other exciting things have you guys invested in that are really cool? Or have you already told us all of them? By the way, for those of you who don't know, they've invested in Asana, which is one of my favorite project management tools. If you're running big teams and you've got a lot on your plate, Asana is where it's at, and they're not paying me for this. Not at all.
Awesome question. We have way up the maturity curve companies like Project 44 and Flexport and Keep Trucking and Freightwaves and others way further back into the less mature side. I know I talked about Baton, but let me tell you a little bit about like a company we just invested in called Dash. This was like, so one of the founders is like literally a rocket scientist. He's been involved with major defense contractors in the East Coast. The other one was an actual Air Force pilot. These guys have come together, and you know what they're going to do? Their mission is not to land the plane, it's to land the package. And I'm not talking drones. So they're taking smart bomb technology, Cassandra. They're affixing this rotor system to, in essence, a courier capsule that you put your boxes into, and they can land them with precision, regardless of wind or weather conditions, in an area the size of the kitchen I'm in right now. So you think of all the areas of the world that can't get next day service. Their whole goal is to say, we're literally going to be dropping packages midair, non-pressurized aircraft. And they're going to, like, think of Alaska, Wyoming, all these places that are difficult to reach. And they're going to say, well, I'm not trying to be FedEx where I'm taking a big jumbo jet and landing it and then doing a courier system out to homes. I'm literally going to be dropping medicine. Think of it like in the world of defense, where if I need to get ammunition or supplies or medical equipment to my troops, I got to parachute it. Well, if there's wind, that parachute's gone. They're saying, no, like I'm literally going to cut through the wind and I'm going to land it with precision. Like that's a company that's super early stage, but like I'm convinced they're going to figure it out. And like in 10 years, we're going to be like, holy crap, like they're literally landing boxes on roofs or in front yards and not through drones, because they've got a completely different aviation set of regulations than drones. So that's a really cool company.
I waited until someone in the crowd would say something about Taco Bell. I knew that was coming. Of course,
I
someone
love
was
it.
like, Taco Bell delivered into my living room? That's amazing.
100%. With your cannabis at the same time.
Yeah,
All in one box.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question and then I'm gonna I think wrap things up, as I see there's a lot of fun comments. But Chandler, okay, let's go back to his question. Who has the Lexus/Infinity story of venture capital logistics? What he means by Lexus and Infinity is that they are profitable, disruptive. They're disrupted in the European car market. So who is that right now, even beyond your company, or somebody that you guys have invested in?
So I think it's assumed that these companies are unprofitable sort of into perpetuity and that the unit economics never work out. Now I'm here to tell you, for some companies, the unit economics never work out, meaning, and by the way, this might be some of the digital brokers, and like, I'm not going to like
hate
loud.
by the way, here.
I'm just saying, like,
it's
I'm not.
okay. It's just
I don't want to throw any boulders at people, but like,
when we hear it.
if their technology and the supply and demand side can't all cooperate in such a way that like there is genuine scalable automation, their unit economics will not work out. Meaning you can't undercut the competition and still have OpEx through the roof. Over time, just like the Amazon story, your OpEx has to come down, your cost of shared services has to come down, so that the economics eventually get to a point where you're profitable and you're dropping money to the bottom line. Where I think people get frustrated is that Because remember, if I said earlier, remember I told you earlier, venture capital gives people 7 to 12 years to figure that out, not 3 to 5.
Yes.
So just because in year 4 they're hemorrhaging cash and you're looking at them like dogs, doesn't mean that in year 8 they're not going to figure it out.
Okay.
And the technology is not going to catch up, and the unit economics are going to finally start to flush out that profit. And all we're saying is, well, guess what? When that happens, the valuations will be technology and or vertical SaaS-based valuations, meaning revenue, multiples of revenue, because when you start to, like, in essence, model out what the long-term financial picture looks like, it's pretty fucking golden, right? We've seen this in other industries. It will happen in ours. We're just so young into like this movement of not having the unit economics figured out, which by the way, it took Amazon a long time to take a $1.4 trillion company and start dropping 40 billion to the bottom line. That only happened in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, at a
I remember for a
$2,800
long time,
stock,
investors were very angry at Amazon and
pissed.
continuously bitched that they weren't making any money and all they were doing was pushing more money into new ideas that were going to fail. It was a constant Wall Street chatter.
And
So
they
that
knew when
makes
to pull the
sense. It's
lever,
good
and
to
they
know
pulled
that.
it. Yep.
Someone on LinkedIn said that they wish they could live in your brain for an hour.
Oh, that's very kind of. No, you don't want to be in here. There's a lot of weird shit going on here. That's why I drink Guinness. Yeah.
And somebody's also asking how long before the plane dropping stuff. Grubhub sucks in my area and we ain't got no Uber Eats.
I know. Think how cool that's going to be. I hope it's fast.
Well, okay, so I'm going to wrap this up so you can get back to your family. Thank you for letting us pick your brain, and also thank you for being patient and understanding where we're coming from, being industry folks, not completely understanding the private equity and VC world. I would say that I'm still fucking mad. I still think that VC world's messing up our industry, but that's I've got to look behind the curtain is what you've taught me, and view who is investing, why are these companies failing, and then be patient with the ones that are failing, perhaps, but they could be successful in the future. Those are my like major key takeaways. Am I missing anything?
Can I give you 2 parting comments for the whole group?
We would love that.
Not all startups and not all investors are created equal. So there is dog shit out there, and it's okay to know that there is dog shit. But guess what? There's some killers out there, and they're coming. Okay. My tip number 2: if you're seeing this world of tech-enabled startups and you're seeing the types of talent they're hiring, and you're like, that's all a bunch of bullshit, my challenge for you would be, look at where you've spent your human capital dollars in the last 2-3 years. Do you have freak show enterprise architects on staff? Do you have freak show data scientists on staff? If you don't, good luck. You're fucked. I'm telling you right now, hire better. Why can't you go find those freaks? Don't let them go out and steal the talent. You go find the best talent. Just because a guy's got 15 years, you're going to go spend 400 grand on him? Get out of here. If you can get a data scientist for 180, he'll 10x the return on that 180 that you could have given, or that you chose to give a guy. You're paying 400 grand because he had a book he was going to bring with him. There's my zing.
I love the challenge in that too. Mad Trapless is going to love that as well. Very cool. All right, enjoy your vacation. Thank you so much. Hold on, let me get my music on. Oh, it's not. This is